iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them for abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Good evening, hello and welcome everybody to V8 Online. There's another night of racing action. We head back to Snetterton after last night's amazing, interesting and potentially controversial V8 Scops. We head back for another night of racing, 23 laps ahead for the drivers tonight, and it will be action-packed with some names that are very, very interesting to see out on track once again. My name is Jay Kennedy and alongside me tonight is Zach Hanlon. Zach, it is going to be a fantastic night of racing. Snetterton really turned it on last year, turned it on last night. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, I actually wasn't able to tune into the V8's online broadcast last night for V8 Scops, so I'll be very interested to see what happens. But from what I've heard, there were a lot of little controversies, few bumps and biffos here and there. It's a fairly tight track, but there are a couple of overtaking opportunities, so I'm sure the guys will be getting the shoulders out tonight. And obviously they have a lot of practice from all that racing they did yesterday. They obviously did 2 sprint races and probably did about 500 laps each in the pre-qualifying, I'm sure. So won't be any lack of speed here tonight, but I think qualifying is going to be very important in this race, although we did see some incidents yesterday which did put a lot of cars that started up the front towards the back of the field, and that could happen again tonight.
Yeah, every chance does. We're starting with the first few times coming in, and Fawzan Al-Nabi straight to the top of the timesheets. No real surprise after his performance last night, but Dane Warren was not racing last night, and he just pips Fawzan by 2/100ths of a second. Very, very tight. Interesting name that we're seeing out on track tonight, a name that we have not seen in the iRacing official V8 Supercar series, I'm going to say about 3 years. former series champion Josh Muggleton out on track tonight. He's had a bit of an interesting night last night, 2 solid top 10s, but he looking to get a bit of redemption, probably wanting to try and find a little bit of extra pace as we head towards Phillip Island in V8 Scops in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, well, there's always, every time you go out on track is an opportunity to play around with the car and find out where the speed is, and you can always use that in other scenarios at other tracks. It's all about keeping in practice, and we've just seen as well Ryan O'Sullivan hitting the top of the timesheets ahead of Dane Warren and Forzan Belnabi. Only 0.07 of a second covering those guys at the top, with Jordan Ross slightly behind on a 47.5. So qualifying very, very tight here, but always good to see people who are well versed in the V8 and previous champions coming back and having a crack. Josh has had a lot of success in Porsches, and I'm sure he'll be able to carry that into tonight. He currently has not put in a qualifying time. Looks like his first one was a bit of a dud, so we'll see him go around the track. But yeah, the time's looking very, very close right now, as your top 10 separated by just over half a second.
Series champion finds himself in that 10th position as well, saying that he's just jumped up into position number 7, has Marlon McMullen. But at the moment, Marlon does have a decent championship lead over the entirety of the rest of the field. But we saw last season how championship standings can change very, very quickly due to the drop weeks and how they all play out.
Yeah, well, that is one of the things that's very unique to iRacing. They obviously understand that not everyone can make it every week. People have real life commitments and can't do the racing every week. So they give you 4 drop rounds per season in order to basically allow you to miss 4 weeks worth of racing and still have a chance of getting up there. And yeah, we did see that with Dane Warren just charging through at the end of the series, obviously not putting in a couple of good performances, but also making a couple of no-shows early in that series, and then just charging home at the end with a streak of fantastic performances. So as we see this series go on, I'm sure that we'll see more people dancing up the top of the table there, but very good for Marlon McMullen to have that lead irrespective. It's always nice to see yourself nice and far ahead in the championship standings, and it puts a lot of extra pressure on all your other competitors. And Ryan O'Sullivan's actually gone quicker. He's done a 47.3, and Josh Muggleton does manage to put in a lap now. He's gone up to 14th position, so I think he's now done, so that'll be the best that he can possibly do.
Wayne Burke's sitting in the pits, and he hasn't actually got a lap in, so unfortunate for Wayne Burke. Matt Stratford's just crossed the line, but his time not very representative of his pace. They are time 4.5 seconds off the pace, so I'm sure we'll see Stratty charge his way through the field.
Yeah, and there's so we're pretty much coming to the close of qualifying now with 20 seconds remaining. There are a couple of cars still out on track, but I think that they're just getting miles in more than anything, although Steve Jansen may just be on his final lap looking to come over the line, but he's going to dive into the pits and make a practice pit stop there.
Yeah, we will see pit stops in the race tonight. Sorry, go on, mate.
Yeah, no, we will see pit stops in the race tonight. We think that Jay and I have very roughly calculated that the guys probably have about 25 to 30 minutes worth of fuel from the onboard in this race, and we're expecting the race to be 45 minutes long, so we'll probably see that pit window opening up around halfway. We'll jump now to the grid, where Ryan O'Sullivan will start from position number 1. He'll be joined on the front row by Dane Warren. Forzan Elnabi and Jordan Ross will take out the second row of the grid. They're followed by Brett Loxton and Brady Myers. Our championship leader, Marlon McMullen, will start out of 7th position alongside Luke Harvey, with Ross Rizzo and Kurt Stenberg taking out the top 10 positions.
Got Cooper Webster and Thomas McMillan on the 6th row. And behind them, Steve Jansen and Josh Muggleton. The top 14 separated by a second, but the top 13, 7.5 tenths of a second. Very, very close. Thomas Hinds in 15th. Jason Bent 16th. Emily Jones in 17th. 14th to 17th, separated by half a tenth of a second. Then we've got Darren Lord, Michael Taliancic, Warren Pickering, Greg Sharp, Scott Sislowski, Corey Preston, Jamie McKnight, Craig Jones, Matt Stratford, and Wayne Burke, as we said, did not put a time in. This race is going to go off. It's going to be very, very tight. It is going to be very, very close. Cannot wait.
Yeah, and there's a big braking zone down into turn 2, but turn 1 here is going to be a little bit interesting. I think we saw a couple of cars going off there early in the race yesterday, so that's one of the danger zones. But these guys have been putting in some fairly clean starts all throughout this official series. And of course, you got to keep your license in mind when you're doing these official races. So everyone will be keeping that in mind. But Ryan O'Sullivan looking good at the head of the grid. He's looking down into turn 1. The lights have come on. The revs are rising. And we are green. Ryan O'Sullivan gets a pretty good start, but Dane Warren next to him just got a slightly better jump. Ryan's going to have to cover that into turn 1 as they come through. And Ryan does keep that position in P1 very nicely as they come down into the braking zone for turn 2. It looks like everyone's just managing to get through. Everyone going too wide through the first corner. Couple of cars there going too wide. Brett Loxton having a bit of a battle with Brady Myers as they come down into turn 3 now. But looks like we got a fairly clean start by everyone. And, in fact, yep. Matt Stratford just getting a little locked up back in the pack there.
Missing the boot on his car, and it looks like the Stealth Synforce car of Greg Sharp. A little bit of damage to the rear.
Brady Myers has just had a huge moment coming out of turn 3 there, and he's lost a couple of positions to Jordan Ross and Marlon McMullen out of that.
And Marlon McMullen up 5 spots from the start already. He's up. Oh, sorry, no, he started in 7th, didn't he? He was in 10th, but then jumped up to 7th. We'll get a quick CPR replay of the start. We'll see if we can pick up what happened to Corey Preston and Greg Sharp at the turn 2 complex of corners.
And they're just fanning out over the down the back of the field now. I don't know if you've got that replay going, Jay,
Yep,
but
replay the start right now.
Ryan O'Sullivan is under a lot of pressure from Dane Warren right now, who's actually looks like he's having a couple of internet problems with a bit of blinking.
So it looks like the damage that's happened for Greg Sharp and Corey Preston was off the start line. Taliantich got a little bit of a poor jump and caused a bit of a bottleneck. Get another replay and we'll see if we can pick up what happened with Ross Rizzo in that big moment. Sorry, Brady Myers, I should say. Big moment he had through the middle of the circuit. Just see on the grass through the middle of turn number 5 and just holds on. We are come back live, lap 1 complete. Already into the pits is Luke Harvey, and this will be an unscheduled stop for him. Corey Preston also out of the race.
Yeah, Luke Harvey, don't know what's happened there, but definitely coming in on lap 1 is not what you want to be doing. Emily Jones just making a bit of a move on Darren Lord there and making herself up another position up into P number 17. But Ryan O'Sullivan is under quite a lot of pressure from Dane Warren up the front here. Dane not letting go to the rear of that ERT car, and he looks like he wants to get a move on at this point.
Yeah, he definitely looks like he wants to get up to the front and work his way forward. We saw Ryan O'Sullivan get his first ever V8 Scots podium last night. 2 best ever finishes in the 2 races last night, a 4th in race 1 and a 3rd in race 2, but behind Dane Warren is Forzen Al Nabi, and he had his best ever starting position. Started in 3rd in the first race. Had some issues with hardware during that first race and didn't quite get to show his true pace. So these front 3 cars really are the quickest 3 cars out on track by a long way.
Yeah, and you can see that all 3 of these cars are just starting to make a slight gap to Brett Loxton. Loxton actually putting in a pretty good performance being up there in P4. Usually we'd probably see him around the mid-pack. So he's doing well, but Marlon McMullen has made a pretty good start as well. He's currently up to 5th. He's followed by Jordan Ross, Brady Myers, Ross Rizzo, Cooper Webster, Thomas McMillan, Kurt Stenberg, and Josh Muggleton all in a bit of a train there following behind. But yeah, I mean, look at this little train for the lead here. And Dane's actually just fallen slightly off the back of Ryan O'Sullivan now. Ryan's had some good pace all throughout this series. Sebring last week, he got a podium. At Le Mans, he qualified on pole, but made a few mistakes. And so long as he can just keep on trotting out there and not have anything bad happen to him, he can just keep a consistent pace, he'll have a good result here tonight. But Dane is looking to snatch that championship away. He is our returning, he is our champion at the moment. And he'll be wanting to snatch that away from Marlon McMullen, as he's already got a good lead in this championship.
Or former series champion, 2 champions in the field with Josh Muggleton just getting past Kurt Stenberg. Margo champion way back in the early days of V8's online broadcasting, the official Monday night V8 Supercar series. And of course, 2-time reigning champion is Dane Warren. These front 3 really look like they're in a bit of a league of their own at the moment. They are just blitzing away from the rest of the field.
Yeah, well, these guys were, well, with the exception of Dane, Ryan and Forzan were obviously in the race yesterday, so they're fairly well versed. But Dane always has the pace to be right up at the pointy end of the field in this V8. Very talented driver in this V8 Supercar. And whenever you see his name pop into a server with this car, you know that he's going to be one of the guys to look out for. And if he puts down a time, you know that's one that you're going to want to set your standard for. But these guys do have a bit of a gap over Brett Loxton, but Marlon McMullen has started closing that gap up to Loxton and is now looking very, very eager to get past and catch back up to that train ahead of him. Pace is looking pretty good from all these guys at the moment, but I think that Brett Loxton is probably going to start holding up Marlon here, and he's going to start want to get a move on very, very quickly.
Yeah, Brett's really come along a fair way in this series. We've seen him progress all the way up towards the pointy end of the field over the last few weeks, and great to see him fighting up just outside the podium positions at the moment. But yeah, Marlon McMullen looks very, very racy. Concern for how aggressive he's looking is that he won't have any rear tyres left. We saw last night the drivers that saved their tyres in the stint really could come on strong at the end, and Marlon looks like he is not leaving any of those Dunlops out there.
No, and that is something that's important that you mentioned, that the tyre drop-off around here, it can go as high as, you know, about 3/4 of a second per lap once the tyres start letting go. So we may see some people starting to come in early once the pit window becomes relatively open, as Marlon McMullen's just showing a bit of a nose to Brett Loxton there. And wouldn't be surprised at all to see some of these guys getting an undercut in, getting some fresh tyres on and trying to put down some good laps. But with a pretty big field around here and a fairly tight track, the thing that's going to be most important for those guys is being able to come out in a gap where they can actually make that work. Very tight track, so it is very difficult to get around a slower car. Even on fresh tyres, it can cause you a lot of time loss. So that is one thing to consider for the guys who may be thinking about coming in for fresh tyres a little earlier than everyone else. But definitely saving all the tyres that you have up until that moment is going to make a big, big difference.
We saw throughout the first few rounds when we've had pit stops, one driver that really rolls the dice and tries something alternate is Michael Taliancic. So he's the one to watch in this one, see what he does strategy-wise. We saw him have that little bit of a bad jump start, a little bit of nose-to-tail contact between he, Greg Sharp, and also Corey Preston. But Taliancic back in the field a little bit, 23rd at the moment. We'll see if he can work something with strategy, because he has done so in the last few weeks.
Yeah, we saw obviously at Sebring last week, he made a fantastic strategy call and unfortunately missed out on a podium because of an incident that he had with Mr. Blacklock within the last 5 meters of the track. But he's usually one to watch out for, usually likes pushing the envelope on how far these cars can go with fuel. And Dane Warren now, he had just lost a little bit to Ryan O'Sullivan, but he is right back on the tail end of that ERT car now. And Forzan El Nabi just starting to drop back a little bit too. Forzan, another guy who doesn't mind getting a bit alternate on the strategy. We saw him at Watkins Glen try and do something a little different to, I think it was Wayne Burke on the day, who was at making the head calls at the time. and Forzan came out on top that day. So maybe Forzan can just save his tyres a little bit here, because Dane does not look like he's saving his tyres. And as we always see with Dane, he's going 100% all the time. There's no point at which Dane really likes to turn on the slow switch and calm it down and save fuel or do anything like that, unless he's got a really, really large lead. And even then, he usually pushes out to get as much of a lead as he can. So Ryan O'Sullivan now coming into turn number 8, I believe that is. I think that's the oh no, I don't actually know this track very well.
I don't know the turn numbers too well either. But
I'm not gonna call any more of the corner numbers because I actually have no idea. But he's looking very good at the moment, and Dane putting on a good amount of pressure. A lot of the cars within a lot of these cars are within very, very tight tolerance of each other, but no real overtaking opportunities yet. Kurt Stenberg looking pretty feisty on the back of Thomas McMillan. McMillan doing a very good job up there in P number 11, especially considering he's car number 23. A lot of cars actually who are, I guess, a little out of their depth in terms of their I rating up in this field. We've got Brett Loxton, car number 21, Jordan Ross in car number 22. They're up in 4th and 6th respectively, and Cooper Webster in car 16 and Tom McMillan in P9 and 10. So those guys doing a very good job. But yeah, looks like guys are having a little bit of trouble passing, and I wonder if they are just saving a bit of their tyre, learning, using that information from the race that they had yesterday to implement a bit of strategy here. Is actually now Kurt Stenberg is going side by side with Thomas McMillan down the front straight. They're going to go 2x2 into turn 1. Who's going to come out on top? Stenny taking it wide and fast around the outside. That's a good move. And he comes out ahead. Going to have to defend a little bit coming into turn 2. But McMillan not giving him too much of a hard time about that. And actually, Thomas Hinz is going to try and get up in there as well, but decides to not put too much pressure on his teammate there and just back out of it. It's a nice little move by Stenberg there.
Yeah, I think if McMillan wasn't his teammate, I think Hinsey might have been a little bit more aggressive there, but he thought twice about it being teammates. You don't want to get involved in an incident with your teammate. A few really good battles starting to unfold throughout the field, but mesmerised by how close and how much pressure Dane Warren is putting on the back of Ryan O'Sullivan at the moment. Not quite able to get by, but he's just applying enough pressure to force Ryan O'Sullivan to use his tyres up, use a bit more fuel than he was probably wanting as well. So going to be really interesting to see how much Dane could potentially jump at the pit stop, but pit stops is where Warren has been weakest throughout the entirety of this season.
Yeah, I was going to say Dane Warren and pit stops are not they're not words I'd put together like cheese and tomato, that's for sure. He always seems to have a bit of an issue when it comes to the pit stops. We've seen him go very, very long on some occasions due to sometimes hardware failures, sometimes miscalculation. So that'll be an interesting point about this race. And these guys have got a nice little gap to Brett Loxton now. Marlon McMullen has actually had to drop off Brett Loxton and is now falling more into the clutches of Jordan Ross. But that will give Dane a little bit of a buffer in the event that he does have a little bit of an issue with the pits, if he has to stay an extra second or two in that pit stop compared to everybody else. But I think this is
Marlon, big mistake. You can see now this is where the tyres, we were talking about tyre use and the abrasion and the tyre degradation very, very high. You can see Marlon now really making a few mistakes and Jordan Ross looking to get by, not quite able to yet.
Yeah, and that could, that could just be Marlon pushing too hard, or it could be maybe his setup is a little more aggressive on tyres compared to the cars around him. But Jordan Ross was looking very good in the Scops races yesterday. I think he was up in the top 5 at some points throughout some of those races. So
he finished 4th in the second race.
There you go.
So yeah, very, very good result for Jordan Ross. He's been fastest in pre-qualifying a few times as well. So Ross definitely one to watch. And a driver that we'll see up towards the pointy end throughout this and V8 Scops.
Yeah, and he just needs to keep it cool and keep his tyres in check and hope that Marlon doesn't decide to keep on slowing him down, because that is going to hurt him in terms of being able to catch up to the back of Brett Loxton, and Marlin taking a lot of curb there, and you can see Jordan Ross is all over the back of Marlin now. So will this corner here is a very, very tricky one. This long right-hander, you kind of have to stay as close to the side of the road as you possibly can, and then a very difficult left-hander, and you need to get a good exit out of here, which Marlin has done. So he's not going to be troubled down into turn one, but Jordan has been looking pretty strong in the first sector, and if he can get a good run out of the first corner here, that could definitely put him in a position to chuck a bit of a move up in the second corner. But he's a bit far back on this occasion. He's just going to have to follow Marlin around a little longer.
Brady Myers is getting in on this one too. Thomas Inns has just jumped in the pit, so he's our first one to jump. So probably what we thought. We were saying around about half an hour worth of fuel. To count back the race, we've got about 27, 26 minutes to go. So
yeah,
pit window definitely open from now. But I'm going to think most guys are going to play this this card long. The only guys that are going to pit early are the guys that have really chewed up the tyres at the start, and wouldn't be surprised if McMullen's in that group that jumps in early.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it depends on what your strategy is, if you want to make up more positions early in the race or later in the race. And I think that Marlin, he hasn't been one to kind of jump in early and go for that different strategy.
Here we go, down the front straight. O'Sullivan swerving offline, Dane Warren defending. Wasn't El Nabi trying to use the draft? El Nabi looks like he's the raciest out of the group of three at the front now.
Yeah, well, he's had the... Whoa! Dane getting very sideways out of the exit corner there. Forzan's had the advantage of just kind of being able to chill back, and he's seen that Dane's been applying a lot of pressure to Ryan. And so Forzan's probably just been able to, keep the pace up fairly well, but probably just sitting along at 90% rather than 100%, just doing a little bit of fuel saving and staying in that draft and just using all the advantages that come along with that. And now Dane does have a little bit of a gap, making a bit of a mistake coming out of that complex of corners earlier. But Ryan O'Sullivan is doing a really good job here.
Ross Rizzo in the pits. Yeah, Ryan O'Sullivan's doing a great job of just racing his own race, not really looking in his mirrors. It's hard to not look down and see that you've got Dane Warren in your rear vision mirror and fighting really hard to try and get through. But Ryan's done a really good job of just racing his own race and fighting his own battle. And at the moment, starting to stretch the legs out of that car. Last lap around, he was the fastest car on track by around about 0.3 of a second. So Ryan O'Sullivan doing everything right at the moment. Seeing more drivers in the pits. We've seen Ross Rizzo, Jason Bentz, and also Wayne Burke in the pits.
And Wayne Burke obviously started at the very, very back of the field, so he wants to try something different to undercut a few of the cars ahead of him. And the gap, the gap from first to even 10th is only 10 seconds. It's not a massively dramatic gap.
McMullen and Janssen just swap positions, swap back, and now they might swap positions once again as they come onto the Bentley straight. Janssen tucked right under the rear wing of the All-Star Motorsport Commodore. Oh, don't go too wide there, boys. This is getting very, very feisty.
Yeah, Steve Janssen's another guy who's been getting up there in the field, progressing really well. He's obviously joined that new team, CMR, and they've been consistently in this series and getting some good experience. And we've got a couple of cars coming into the pit lane now.
Have a look at how busy the pit lane is looking. We've got into the lane Loxton, O'Sullivan, El Nabi, McMullen, Myers, Cooper Webster also in, Emily Jones coming in. Oh, big crash! Darren Lords hit the wall at the pit entry, blocking the track. Good job getting out of the way
in time. Yeah, he just got out of the way in time ahead of Greg Sharp and Scott Styslowski. So pit lane's starting to...
Forzan's jumped Ryan O'Sullivan in the pits. We've got a replay of that as they come out. We're just seeing a replay of very, very easy to do there. Darren Lord just hitting the brakes a little bit too aggressively as he is coming into the pits with the car at the pit lane line. On board here with Forzan Al-Nabi, and through goes he over Ryan O'Sullivan. And new effective race leader right now, Forzan El Nabi.
Yeah, his stop was about 1.6 seconds faster than Ryan O'Sullivan, so sitting in that draft for those few laps might have saved him a couple of litres worth of fuel, which has really helped him. But he could have also maybe not have been saving and underfueled the car slightly just to get that jump, and may do the fuel saving towards the end of this race. But he definitely doesn't have much of a gap to Ryan O'Sullivan if he does need to save some fuel. So we'll see that battle as it progresses on. But still trailing around the course at the moment is Dane Warren. He's just coming through the penultimate corner now. And will he dive for the pits? I think he kind of has to cover these guys off, and he does. He comes into the pit lane. So if Forzan and Ryan have a bit of a shoddy outlap here, they might be jumped by Dane, but I suspect that coming in earlier is the better strategy at this time. We do have a couple cars still continuing round. Kurt Stenberg goes around one more time, as well as Steve Jansen and Warren Pickering. Those guys have not decided to come into the pit lane this time, but Dane Warren is still on the jacks, and he's away. Slow stop, 18.9. So he's probably going to get jumped by both of those guys, and he does. So Dane, Dane actually about a second and a half back on these guys now. Ryan O'Sullivan looking very aggressive coming through turn one.
Biggest winner out of all of the pit stops, though, has been Ross Rizzo. He's jumped Brady Myers, Mullen McMullen, and Cooper Webster. Got himself up into what is now effective number 5.
But has he got enough fuel? That is the question.
Yeah,
he was
very quick stop.
It was very quick. It was a second faster than nearly everybody else who's coming to the pits, with the exception of Thomas Hinz, who made an equally as fast stop as Rizzo. Hinz down in position number 18 at the moment.
Battle at the moment behind Thomas McMillan. It was wheel-to-wheel contact between he and Jason Bentz, and Wayne Burke, another hip and shoulder between Bentz and McMillan.
Yeah, no love lost there, that's for sure. And Wayne Burke going to try and sneak his way on both of these guys here. Jason Bentz is a very tough customer, and he won't let him through easy. But Wayne Burke has had some very good pace this season. We've seen him up in the podium positions, and he's going to go for the over-under there and makes a very, very nice move. And I think he'll make that one stick. Yeah, very, very nice move there from Wayne Burke.
Here comes McMillan, though, because Bentz would have got a little bit of wheel spin out on that AstroTurf. Compromised the run down the Bentley Straight. Coming up to Brundle under the bridge. McMillan not quite close enough, but Bentz has somehow got back through.
Yeah, we've seen Wayne be very tentative when it comes to overtaking around the outside. We saw it at Sebring, where he let a car through on the inside and lost an extra position, just basically because of how wide he ran through the corner. So Wayne not feeling super confident in his overtakes. Whether that, I mean, there could be several reasons for that. Maybe he knows he doesn't have the best internet connection. Maybe he's had some net code issues before, or maybe...
Could it even be set up that he's running a totally different gear ratio setting, and he hasn't got the top end speed? Wow, this is messy. Oh, McMillan almost into the back of Burke, almost into the door of Bentz. Wow, what a battle this is.
Yeah, and McMillan did a really nice job there not to collect either of those guys, but he is still at the back of that train, and that's allowing Emily Jones to catch up on these guys. And I got to tell you, if there's one person I don't really want to have behind me, it's Emily Jones. She's very aggressive and very feisty, and a very good racer. And if you give her an inch, she'll take it, and she'll do whatever she can with it. And looks like McMillan is a little bit sketchy coming through this section here. And now Emily Jones and Warren Pickering are getting right in there too.
Yep. Battle to watch. The one to watch in this is Bentz, because he was the first to pit. He pitted at the same time as Ross Rizzo. The person that pitted the earliest we saw was the car of Thomas Hinz. But this pack is getting really, really feisty.
Yeah, well, it's all for keeps down there in what are they? 19, 20, and an 18, although I think we've still got a couple of cars
Oh,
left.
three wide now. 3 wide between Bence, Jones, and Pickering. Pickering got out of it, but Jones and Bence were still side by side. Will Pickering go through? Bence offline. Not quite able to. Oh, just enough room given. Good driving. Oh, wheel-to-wheel contact once again. Here we go.
Little bit of a bump. That's okay. That's a bit of net code. But yeah, Warren Pickering doing a fantastic job there to keep it around the outside and get some fantastic traction out of that last corner. That's a very nice move, and he obviously followed through with Emily Jones on that one. So Emily picks up a spot, and she's now going to look to hunt back down on Thomas McMillan and Wayne Burke. But very nice move from Emily and Warren there to capitalize on that one.
2 cars left to pit, and if you were to guess at the start of the race who would be in the group of cars to pit last, one of the two would be Michael Taliancic.
Yeah, definitely.
And
yeah,
he's still
well,
out there.
that's expected.
Yep. He's made that overcut work really well for him. It's going to be tough. We've seen how hard it is to actually get a pass done other than forcing a mistake. But Taliancic has made it work throughout this series. He's got still reasonable pace, pacing around about the same lap times as the guys that he was battling with before the pit stop. So he could come out, maybe jump a few spots.
Yeah, he might be able to make up a few spots. I mean, there is a little bit of disparity between, I guess, the guys sitting from about P12 and under, lapping almost a second slower than most of the field up ahead of them. So Michael sitting in that 49, mid-49s, and he's actually in the pit lane now. So 28 minutes into this race, and Michael Taliancic comes into the pit lane. He's up on the jacks. He's joined in the pit lane by Craig Jones. So both of those guys obviously expended all of the fuel in their tanks and can't go any further. So we'll see where these guys come out. I think we'll probably see them come out around P18, P17, or maybe even just ahead of that train of Wayne Burke.
Yeah, probably pretty close to that battle pack that we were watching.
I think he's going to come out just behind because those guys have gone through now, and Michael's just exiting the pit lane. So he'll rejoin behind. Oh, actually, he's been pipped by Steve Jansen there as well. Just Steve swooping through on the entry into turn 1. So he has a bit of work to do, Michael Taliancic, but he does have fresher tyres than everybody by at least everyone around him, probably about four laps or so. So that will make a big difference.
One thing too, he's come back out in his starting position. So come out of the pits late in the race with fresh tyres and a fresh tyre advantage back where you started. Probably not overly upset with that. The biggest mover through the field is Wayne Burke though. We saw he didn't get a time in qualifying. Started in 27. He's passed over half of the field.
Yeah,
now
that's really impressive. Yeah, it's really impressive. He's up 14 spots right now. And especially on a track like this where it's very tight and difficult to overtake, maybe we should just go back and watch the whole race from his point of view, because I haven't seen a whole lot of that, but he's been doing an absolutely beautiful job to get that car up there. And as we said, Wayne Burke has been up there in a lot of the races this season, up in the podium positions. So really not surprising at all, and only about 20 seconds off the lead after half an hour of racing. And considering he started from the back, that is a fantastic effort.
Watching the battle pack on screen, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th. Rizzo, Myers, McMullen, Webster and Muggleton. Now we had some questions and some doubts about Ross Rizzo in regards to fuel and whether he would have enough with that very, very short pit stop. I think we've got that answered. I don't think he's got enough. I think he's fuel saving.
Yeah, I think he's gonna. I mean, I think he has to fuel save. He come in pretty early, and as we said, he was about a second faster on the stop, and I think the fuel goes in at roughly about 3 liters per second in these V8 supercars. So he's got approximately, probably about 4 to 5 liters, I would think, less fuel than most of the people around him, and that's going to mean that he's going to have to be on minus probably 50. On some of these laps towards the end of the race here to make it home. We do only have 7 laps left of this race, but and that is plenty of time to save, but he's going to have to really pick his moments in where he does saving. I think probably some of the best opportunities are down into turn 1 and 2, and In fact, actually, this track does offer a lot of opportunity for fuel saving, so he may be able to make it work. But fuel saving is an art that is learned over a long time, and we'll see if he's got what it takes to make it happen.
Yep, just watching Josh Muggleton hounding the rear of Cooper Webster. Webster has seen another driver that's made his way up through the field and starting to contend for top fives and potentially podiums. And one to watch for sure is Cooper Webster, and tucked in behind series leader Mullen McMullen. He'll be definitely learning some things there. But we've said all race, it is so tough to pass. Seeing at the back of the train is Josh Muggleton. He looks noticeably quicker than everyone else in this group, but just isn't able to get anything working.
Yeah, well, I mean, these guys, wow, those guys are lapping within very, very tight times of each other. Just for reference, Marlon McMullen a 149.1, Cooper Webster a 149.1, Josh Muggleton a 149.1. I think there's about 300ths at the very maximum separating those guys the last time round. So, Josh has been putting in some pretty good pace, and his fastest lap is faster than the two guys ahead of him. So, and he's making a bit of a move here, actually. Yeah, that was a good one on Cooper Webster, nice and late and down the inside, and just getting very sideways as he comes out there. And don't think, and yeah, actually, Cooper Webster's been able to get past, yeah, because of that. So, and he's going to go down again, and bit of a bump there. Yeah, that's a bit crunchy. And Cooper Webster now missing a little bit of the right-hand quarter of his Holden Commodore there, and that's allowed Jordan Ross, who's down a few spots in this race so far. He'll be looking to push himself forward, and he's been very quick this race. So they've now got him on the back, and they're going to lose touch with Marlon McMullen up ahead as well.
Yep. Jordan Ross is probably a little bit out of sequence. You can see the lack of grip that this circuit has. These guys are getting on the throttle. They're just trying to give a tiny little bit extra throttle to get some drive and get out of the corners, but really, really struggling with rear traction at the moment, this entire group.
Yeah, well, they're obviously all pushing very hard, and there are a lot of traction zones on this circuit, so it's not surprising to see the rear tyres going so quickly. Jordan Ross actually had a very slow stop, which could explain why he's so far back in the field. His stop was pretty much 2 to 3 seconds slower than everybody else, so he's obviously going to be a little bit hurt over that one, and he'll be looking to push himself forward, and he definitely has the speed to do that, as he's very, very close to the back of Josh Muggleton now. But Josh Muggleton really does want to get a move on. He was darting and diving all over the place, trying to get past Cooper Webster, who's getting very, very sideways out of turn 3 there. And we see...
Here we go again. We just saw a CPR replay of Scott Soslowski having a little bit of a big slide moment. Yeah, Muggleton looks really, really racy. He's like already back onto the rear of Webster. He wants to get by as quick as he can, but it's so hard to get a move done. But every single passing opportunity leaves you open for an over-under move as well.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, you've got to have the rear tyres to be able to put down the traction and cement that move. Otherwise, the other car, if you know, you can go down the inside or you can go around the outside, but if you can't carry the corner speed out the other side or get the traction down, you're going to have trouble holding onto that position, as we've seen a couple of times throughout this race. Just having a look up at the front as well now. Dane Warren has been able to close up on Ryan O'Sullivan, and Ryan O'Sullivan is looking pretty racy behind Forzan El Nabi there. Gap at the line between the three cars is less than a second, 0.7 of a second, separating the top three cars at the moment, with 4 laps left in this race. And will we see Forzan starting to fuel save at all? I'm going to go on board with him and see if we can spot anything obvious. He's definitely using all the revs in the rev range in his Holden Commodore. It doesn't appear to be doing much fuel saving at the moment. We'll see as he comes down in this braking zone here. And definitely he is coasting a little bit. Yep. He is definitely coasting a little bit, but probably not as much as I expected he would have to. But maybe just controlling the pace a little bit here to try and make himself home.
4.5 laps to go in this race around this 3-mile British circuit. We're wondering about the configurations at Snetterton. Of course, we've got the 3 configurations. We ran last year. We ran the 200 layout. If you're wondering why they're called the 100, 200, and 300, the number is pretty much how many miles the track length is. The 300 layout is 2.95 miles long, so effectively a 3-mile track.
Yeah, it's still very confusing though, given that miles are not, you know,
Don't really have
really
decimal.
compatible in that sense. But we digress.
Something's happened to Thomas McMillan as well. It looks like he's been disqualified from the race server.
That's interesting because I'm not seeing anyone with a large amount of incidents.
Actually, an incident between McMillan and Emily Jones. We're just going to do a CPR replay. Jones up the inside of McMillan and almost looped it around. Oh, actually was helped a little by Warren Pickering, and then you just see McMillan's car disappear. He is disqualified from the race. So race over for McMillan. So now 4 DNFs from this race. McMillan, Kozlowski, Bradford and Preston. Emily Jones is very, very battered and bruised.
Yeah, she's copped a little bit of a punt there in that incident, but I think when she was getting past Bence or Pickering earlier, she did cop a little bit of damage to that left-hand rear quarter there. But she's not doing too badly, up 2 spots from 17th into 15th. And Warren Pickering...
Wheel-to-wheel contact with Webster. Sorry, he finally got up the inside. Might nearly be able to get this move done, but they bang wheels. Webster holds that outside line. He's going to have the inside again. Over-under going to happen here, though. We've seen it many, many times. Good job from Webster to defend there.
Yeah, Webster's always been very good at defending and very good at holding on to his positions. Not always fantastic at moving forward, but if he's got some reasonable pace, he can always keep up there. This move's going to be pretty tough to defend from Josh Muggleton, who fires it down the inside, and he's definitely got more than enough overlap. But will he run too wide? And he does, but Cooper Webster not anticipating for Josh to come back across the track like that, just spins up the rear tyres a little bit, and that is positioned to Josh Muggleton, and I suspect with his pace he'll probably be able to drive away from Cooper Webster unless he makes a mistake here or there, although Cooper's actually done a very good job to stay on the back.
Dane Warren through on Ryan O'Sullivan, so I think O'Sullivan's decided he's not going to be able to get past El Nabi. Made that very, very easy for Dane Warren into turn 1. So now Dane's job to hunt down and try and pass Forzan El Nabi.
Yeah, and maybe Ryan's... it could be a bit of strategy from Ryan there. I mean, you obviously don't want, as we just see Jordan Ross going down the inside of Cooper Webster as well. They're coming together! Oh, just a bit too much overlap there, and Cooper Webster just having that car come across the front of his bar there, causing Jordan Ross to just go into the wall. We'll get a replay of that for you, and yeah, it was a little bit of a bump midway through the corner, and then, yeah, I think Jordan Ross just not quite coming far enough across on the track for that to really work, but he'll push forward. And yeah, I mean, Dane's actually got a fair bit of a gap to get back to Forzan now, and they've only got 2 laps left. So I wonder if Ryan's hoping that Dane will get into a bit of a battle with Forzan and he can pip them both, but still doing a good job either way to be up in the top 3 there. And those cars still covered by... Oh, actually, the gap's gone out to a second to Dane Warren. So
Yeah.
on
I
the previous
wonder
lap,
if
they were all
Ryan
within a
O'Sullivan
second.
is struggling with fuel. Maybe he has to fuel save a tiny little bit. Has used the right foot a little bit too aggressively and has decided to let the battle go. See if Dane can hunt down Forzan. 1 second exactly at the line. Gap between first and second.
You know, Ryan doesn't seem to be doing a massive amount of fuel saving. He is still revving out the engine, and he's not coasting into the, especially that hairpin there, is one you would definitely expect one to be coasting into if you were trying to achieve a bit of fuel
Brady
saving.
Myers, big dive bomb on Ross Rizzo, just pulls it up. Oh, no traction on the exit though, and Rizzo holds on to 5th.
Yeah, very nice job there from Ross Rizzo. And as we've said, you got to have the traction to be able to make those moves stick. And I was actually just watching Ryan O'Sullivan as Ross Rizzo was having that battle there. And it seems like Ryan is struggling quite a bit with rear grip, losing the car mid-corner, the rear braking traction very, very easily with minimal throttle input. So he could be struggling for tires, maybe just use too much of them up, trying to catch back up to Forzan. But this battle between Brady Myers, Ross Rizzo, and Marlon J. McMullen. Marlon back in P7 where he started, and his pace hasn't been super great, but he is within striking distance of these two cars here, and I'm sure that he will not be opposed to seeing these two guys fighting a little bit for sure.
No, not at all. And start behind them, Cooper Webster and Kurt Stenberg going at it, and Muggleton has definitely pulled away from Webster since he got on by. Obviously with that little bit of contact between Webster and Jordan Ross. 1 lap to go. Gap now 1.1 seconds, so it looks like Forzan may have done enough, but still a slight little question mark over whether he's got enough fuel.
Yeah,
Still very tight.
As we've said it time and time again, it is not over until it's over. I think there hasn't been a single race this year where we haven't seen someone run out of fuel within the last 50 meters of the track. So does Forzan have enough in the tank? We'll find out very shortly. Should he not, Dane Warren may be able to capitalize, although...
Oh, Rizzo around.
Oh no, Rizzo was doing so well, and he's just gotten a bit of a bump there from Brady Myers into turn 2. We'll get a Cut Price Racing replay of that for you. Oh goodness, that was some very unfortunate contact there. He got launched right up on 2 wheels because of that, and that'll allow Marlon McMullen through as well, who's going to make up another position and is now hounding the back of Brady Myers.
And Mullen now up into 6th. Back to the front. Gap has closed. Dane has gained 3.5 tenths on this lap so far. Has Forzan got enough in the tank? We are 4 corners away from finding out for sure. He's way out of the throttle.
Yeah, he's fuel saving hard. Yeah, I reckon this is going to be very tight. Let's see, Dane is now half a second behind, so another 3 tenths in that sector alone. 1 corner to go after this long sweeping right-hander. Does Forzan have the juice to make it to the line? He makes it into the final quarter, puts the power down, and it looks like that car is continuing to move forward. And Forzan El Nabi will take out. He's coughing, but he's got enough of a gap. So Forzan El Nabi takes out the race at Snetterton in the iRacing official V8 Supercars series, followed by Dane Warren, Ryan O'Sullivan, Brett Loxton having a quiet but very good race, followed by Brady Myers, Marlon McMullen, and Josh Muggleton. Cooper Webster holding on for 8th, pardon me. And Ross Rizzo, after that incident on the final lap, will take out your 10th position. Jordan Ross having a bit of a shocker, getting caught up in a bit of bad stuff and having a long pit stop, comes in P11. Thomas Hins in 12th, and got a train of cars coming over the line now. Catch up with the rest of the field as we go through the results in just a moment. But
well done to Wayne Burke, passing half the field. He ends up finishing in 14th position. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, drive of the day. My vote goes to probably Wayne Burke on that one. It's 14 positions, and the most amount of cars otherwise that was made up was the car behind him of Warren Pickering, who made up 6th. No other cars really made up more than 4 positions. So for Wayne to have made up 14 spots in that race just really goes you to show that he is one of the top contenders in this championship. And even though I give him a bit of crud for maybe being a bit too cautious, that cautiousness has ended him, that's ended him up with 14 extra spots that he didn't have before. So well done to Wayne Burke there. We will now go to your race results Forzan El Nabi taking out the Snetterton racing circuit, the 300 circuit layout here, starting from third position and having a fantastic race, some good pit stop strategy and fuel saving, got him onto the top step of the podium. He was followed very closely by Dane Warren in second position, and Ryan O'Sullivan took out the final step on the podium after starting in pole position. Brett Loxton having a quiet but steady race, moves himself up into fourth with Brady Myers coming in P5. Marlon McMullen doing quite well to make himself up to P6. Josh Muggleton, another one of our movers and shakers, actually up 7 positions from P14 up into P7. Cooper Webster doing a good job throughout that race to come home P8. Kurt Stenberg having a bit of a quiet one in P9, and Ross Rizzo takes out your top 10 position.
Go over the page to Jordan Ross. He just held off from Thomas Hinds with a heavily damaged car at the end. So 11th, 12th for those two. Wayne Burke, as we've said, the biggest mover, plus 14, finishes in 13th position from 27th on the grid. Warren Pickering next in 14th, with Emily Jones holding off a charging Steve Jansen right at the end for 15th and 16th for Jansen. Jason Bentz in 17th. Michael Toliancic finishes in 18th. Probably not quite enough time left for him to make as many moves as he would have liked with those fresh tyres. Greg Sharp in next in 19th, and rounding out the top 20 is Jamie McKnight.
Well, not the most exciting race that we've had this season, but it was still a good one nonetheless. And good to see. It was a very strong field, very difficult field to make overtakes on. I mean, there's not really a single person in this field that you can put a bad mark on. They're all very, very high quality drivers, and it's been an absolute pleasure to watch them tonight. Now, tell me, Jay, what do we have coming up on V8 Online later this week?
So nothing actually later this week. We've got the rest of the week off for us here at V8 Online as we prep for real life V8 Supercar racing this weekend at Phillip Island. But next Monday night, we will have the return of the iRacing official V8 Supercar Series. The first time in 3 years that the V8 Supercars head to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Looking forward to that. It was an old staple in the series. Hasn't been used for a long, long time. So looking forward to that. And next weekend, V8 Scops at Phillip Island. 29th of December. Official V8 Supercar Series will be at Phillip Island for round 7. Zach, it's been an awesome fun night. And shout out to Bo, who's unfortunately unable to be with us tonight. Hopefully things improve for you soon, Bo.
Yeah, we'd ask everyone sends Bo some good vibes, because he is a fantastic guy and just having a bit of troubles at the moment. So Bo, we're wishing you all the best, and we hope that you'll be back with us soon. But from all of us here at V8 Online, we've really enjoyed your company. We hope to see you next week, and you guys all have a fantastic night. Thanks for watching.